ready for a surprise!
When Total Recall came out in 1990, it was one of my favorite movies. I must have watched it 100 times. This was a few years before I fell in love with reading, so at the time I had no clue who Philip K. Dick was, who, if you didn't know, wrote the short story that Total Recall is based on. This might sound strange to you, I know it did to me, having read other Philip K. Dick novels. The movie Total Recall is much more of an action movie than his writing tends to be. So, when I first heard that he had written the story it was based on, my first thought that it must be very loosely based on it. But to my surprise, it's very close for the majority of the story. However, the parts that differ are the reason I wanted to make this video. If it was just a blow-for-blow version of the movie, I wouldn't feel there was any point. So trust me when I say you should stay for the ending. It's classic Philip writing. You know, in the original script for that last line, I wrote his last name instead of his first and almost missed what I was doing. And just FYI, I still have not seen the 2012 version, so I will not be referencing that at all in this video. When I talk about the movie, I will only mean the 1990 version with Arnold. The story starts off almost exactly like the movie, or maybe I should say that the movie starts off almost exactly like the story, but right at the end, they take sharp turns in opposite directions. One thing that I loved about the movie Total Recall was that you could convince yourself that the whole thing happened in Douglas Quaid's head. He got exactly what he asked for from Recall. Now the movie tries to play it both ways, as Quaid sees the woman he later meets on the computer screen before passing out, giving the impression that it's all a dream. But just a moment later, he is entirely unconscious, and the nurse tells the doctor that he hasn't had any memories implanted yet.
Listen to me. He has been going on and on about Mars. He has really been there.
Use your head, you dumb bitch. He's just acting out the secret agent portion of his ego trip.
I'm afraid that's not possible.
Why not?
Because we haven't implanted it yet.
Since I find it easier to explain away the woman, seeing as he was already drugged and was falling into unconsciousness, so it could have just been his imagination, as compared to explaining away how he would know what was going on when he was already asleep, which I simply don't have an answer for, so I'm on the side of it being real. In the story We Can Remember It For You Wholesale, which for brevity's sake I will just call Wholesale from now on, never gives you this impression at all. There was never any doubt that Douglas Quail is actually a secret agent who had already been to Mars. In fact, Quail never actually goes to Mars in Wholesale. He was there before the story started and doesn't return. Now this video is going to be a bit different than most of my others, in that I will not be giving a play-by-play recap of the story. If you want to know what happens in the story, watch the first 30 minutes of Total Recall. Actually, just watch the whole thing if you haven't already. It's worth the time in my opinion. What I'm going to do is tell you the similarities and differences. Both stories start off exactly the same, except for Quaid in the movie is Quail in the story. Quail is a menial worker with a boring life who dreams of going to Mars as a secret agent. But since he is nothing special and isn't well paid, he knows he can't afford a real trip to Mars. But he probably could afford to have a false memory implanted in his mind that he had gone to Mars. And in this implant, why not be a secret agent? There are some minor differences with how the recall memory implant works. In Total Recall, I got the impression that after the implant, the patient still knows it was fake. But in Wholesale, they erase your memory of recall and stash some evidence that you actually went in your apartment, making you think that your trip was entirely real. In Wholesale, they just drug him in preparation for the memory implant, and that makes him remember everything on its own. They never try to implant the memories, so there's no question that it's not just a botched job like it seems it might be in the movie. He just remembers everything that happened while sedated. Recall hopes he won't remember any of this when he comes back to consciousness, but on the ride home, he starts to remember. He also remembers going to Recall, which the doctor had assured him he wouldn't, or he could get a full refund. So even before making it home, he returns to Recall and demands that full refund. After they give it to him, hoping he doesn't put the pieces together, he returns home to his fake wife, who basically just leaves him when he starts asking her questions. She doesn't try to kill him herself as she does in the movie. She just walks out the door, and government agents appear in the apartment. Quayle escapes just as he does in the movie, and finds out he has an implant in his brain, just like in the movie. However, unlike in the movie, he cannot remove it. So instead of going to Mars, Quayle makes a deal with the voices in his head. The tracker in Wholesale is not just a bug, it can also read his thoughts and transmit the government's orders to him. So through it, he makes a deal with the government. Since trying to implant the same old memories will just eventually lead to the same outcome, they come up with a new plan. They will probe Quayle's psyche for his deepest desire, and then implant that as a memory. This way he will already have attained his dream, and would not be restless as he was in his mundane life. They find that his fantasy is to save Earth from aliens single-handedly. Not with violence, but with kindness. The aliens will be impressed by his kindness and leave the Earth, promising not to return while he lived. They think this fantasy is very childish and egotistical, and even a bit selfish, as the aliens are only promising to not return until after he died. So he didn't really save the Earth, he just postponed it. Why is his fantasy that, and not that they say they will never come back? But despite these criticisms, they prepare to implant this memory in his head. But, well, let me just read you the final page. The intercom buzzed.
Mr. McLean, I'm sorry to bother you, but something's come up. Maybe it would be better if you came in here and supervised. Like before, Quayle reacted well to the narcodrine. He's unconscious, relaxed, and receptive. But...
McLean sprinted for the work area. On a hygienic bed, Douglas Quayle lay breathing slowly and regularly, eyes half shut, dimly conscious of those around him.
We started interrogating him, to find out exactly when to place the fantasy memory of him single-handedly having saved Earth. And strangely enough...
They told me not to tell, Douglas Quayle mumbled in a dull, drug-saturated voice. That was the agreement. I wasn't supposed to remember. But how could I forget an event like that?
I guess it would be hard. But you did, until now.
They even gave me a scroll, Quayle mumbled, of gratitude. I have it hidden in my conapt. I'll show it to you. To the interplan officer who had followed after him, McLean said,
Well, I offer the suggestion that you better not kill him. If you do, they'll return.
They also gave me a magic invisible destroying rod, Quayle mumbled, eyes totally shut now. That's how I killed that man on Mars you sent me to take out. It's in my drawer, along with a box of Martian mawworms and dried up plant life. Wordlessly, the interplan officer turned and stalked from the work area.
I might as well put those packets of proof artifacts away, including the citation from the UN Secretary General. After all, the real one probably would not be long in coming.
So that's how the story ends. Not with ancient aliens returning life to Mars, but with modern aliens threatening all life on Earth. Personally, I like both versions. The Philip version is much funnier, but the movie is much more in-depth with the political intrigue, action scenes, mutations, and ancient aliens. So tell me what you prefer in the comments and why. I'd love to hear your opinion on both.
2 weeks.
Excuse me?
2 weeks. 2 weeks.
Hey, thanks for watching. I really appreciate you staying this long, and since you did, hopefully that means you like my channel. So I'd really appreciate it if you would like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe, so I can see you back here for the next one. Take care.